So, for my hot topic choice, I decided to teach on grammar methods that stick. How to have a fun, engaging classroom that encourages lesson retainment. So, for your warm up activity, I want you to think about when you've been bored either at work, maybe it's in a class, and think about if you were able to retain any information at all. So, just take a moment and reflect on that. Okay, so after you've reflected on that, um, think to yourself, were you able to retain any information? And that really brings us into the importance of this whole lesson. So why does it matter to have a fun, interesting lesson plan? So these are just a few points that I've pointed out as far as why it is important to have a fun and interesting lesson plan. A couple of them are students that are bored are more likely to be disruptive to themselves and others around them. A fun, interesting lesson will motivate the student, and by creating engaging lessons, students and teachers will develop a stronger bond of trust. And also, students will retain the information presented in the lesson. So, what are some possible ways to make grammar lessons stick? Well, there's, I'm sure, a whole vast array of possibilities, but I just decided to discuss a few of my personal favorites. The first is fun games. The second is the use of mnemonics. The third is thinking outside the box with unconventional diagrams, perhaps stimulating visuals like comic books. And the last is, of course, review. So, fun games. So, for this activity, I'd like you to brainstorm with a partner and think of some possible games that you can incorporate. So, I'll give you an example of mine. I decided that Jenga would be, actually, giant Jenga would be a great way to incorporate a fun game into the classroom. And for an example for this, I decided to choose grammar as far as maybe I'm teaching students adjectives that day. Maybe that's our focus. So an example, a way that you could incorporate this game is you could have certain adjectives, verbs, or nouns written on each block, and students would then have to select the pieces in order to create a full sentence and still have to adhere by the rules of Jenga by not letting the tower fall. So the next one is mnemonics. Mnemonics are images, sounds, rhymes, or acronyms that connect items in your head that may be difficult to remember. So mnemonics is great when it comes to grammar. And so I want you to take some time and reflect on a mnemonic that you still use today, or perhaps create your own mnemonic. So the third one is the use of comic books and graphic novels. And as you can see here, it's just a little comic blurb. And so some of the benefits of this is students are really to connect to the lesson because it appeals to visual, auditory, and kinesthetic learners. And their creativity can bloom, which allows a student to become engaged and excited in the lesson. So you can do this by having students break into groups of 3 or 4 and brainstorm, and then they can put together a comic that they can call their own. So unconventional graphic organizers are also a fun thing to do. You can see here, there's a crossword puzzle, an upside down triangle, and I really like that one because sometimes students have a hard time knowing what's important when a teacher is up lecturing. And so this kind of narrows down the most important details of the lesson plan. And the last one is review. Review is incredibly important when it comes to grammar. Now, with consistent review, the student will be exposed to general grammar rules, allowing students the chance for comprehension. So I want you to take a few minutes to think independently about a particular grammar rule or rules that you may need consistent review, or maybe not specifically you, but maybe it's a grammar mistake that you come across often. It could be along the lines of the difference of it's and it apostrophe s, or your and you are. So some common grammar mistakes that you oftentimes see, even with adult writing. And so for my assessment, I'd like you to click on the link here. And this is your exit ticket. And I'm actually going to do it for you. So you can kind of see, it's just a couple of questions that I'd like you to fill out. You're going to start with your name, your email, and answer what's one important thing that you learned in class today. And give 3 examples on how to make grammar lessons stick. And provide an idea or example of your own that would be beneficial to a class regarding the material provided. So anyways, thank you. Have a good one.